Worried about your aura? Feel like something's wrong with your energy shield? Fear not, because it's probably all nonsense anyway. Auras rode the wave of that heyday of wacky mystical experimentation and occult fascination, the Victorian era. The period from 1837 to 1901 saw profound technological and social changes overlap with the Industrial Revolution and radiate out from the United Kingdom. Society reeled from the move from agriculture to industry, and many were crushed under inhumane working and living conditions. Some, including Queen Victoria herself, turned to alternative sources of spiritual fulfillment, such as seances, hypnotism, mediumship, clairvoyance, and using talking boards. With new tech came new grifts, particularly those involving photography. Double-exposed photos from the 19th century revealed supposed apparitions hovering over the living, and mediums were snapped vomiting ectoplasm that was, in truth, simply wadded fabric. In the 1890s, Russian engineer Yakov Narkovich Totka discovered that discharges of electricity from an electrode produced shapes on film. In 1939, Russian electrician Semyon Davidovich Kirlian stuck a leaf between an electrode and a film to produce such a shape, or aura. Kirlian and his leaf formed the foundation of aura prints, dubbed Kirlian photography. Despite the name, there's no actual photography involved. Shapes and colors passively imprint on film as ionized air travels around an object. Kirlian photography hit Western countries in the early 1970s just in time to ride the New Age wave, which itself had emerged from Victorian beliefs. Without chakras, there are no auras. People conceive of chakras as energetic focal points in the body that daisy chain from the base of the spine up through the crown of the head. Each point is associated with a different color, from the basic biological needs of the root chakra to the higher cosmos-connected crown chakra. Believers tend to think of this system as an inherited, ancient Indian tradition derived from the Vedas, a spiritual text written from 1500 to 500 BCE. But the modern seven-color system comes from the 1577 CE book Explanation of the Six Chakras. This book was translated into English in 1918, right in the middle of the Theosophy boom. Nowadays, some believe auras to represent the precise features described by each chakra. Energy supposedly flows through the body, vibrates, and yields some nice, colorful patterns when captured using Kirlian photography. A reddish aura describes a grounded person driven by bodily needs. A yellowish aura portrays a purposeful and inquisitive person, that kind of thing. There are also color combinations, blends, gradations, and so on. In truth, however, the color differences in these aura exposures relate to various dyes used on film. Today, aura photography is a full-on boom business showing no signs of slowdown. But while auras make good art, the science isn't really up to scratch. They're essentially a snappy personality test meets self-therapeutic tool, similar to Myers-Briggs type indicator online surveys or astrological charts.
I get a lot of tears. A lot of people really feel a ton of validation.
At a stretch, auras might serve some kind of semi-scientifically valid psychological purpose. After all, art therapy is a perfectly legitimate therapeutic method. Granted, art therapy involves a patient actively making art, not just looking at pretty pictures. Nonetheless, few would deny the emotional and psychological benefits of much-loved artwork, music, or literature. Setting aside issues of scientific rigor for the moment, there are even businesses with their own apps that incorporate all sorts of mystical goings-on into therapy sessions. This includes astrology, past life regressions, and yes, auras. Such methods might not pass data-driven muster, but if they work, they work. Part of the confusion about auras stems from that eternal wellspring of human misinformation and pseudoscience that we call the internet. There are many more hobbyist articles about auras online than hard scientific studies. That's mostly because no one in any scientific circle has ever taken Kirlian photography seriously as anything worth studying. Metaphysics isn't physics besides, by definition, but we can still sniff out the scientific validity of auras by dissecting the scientific literacy of the articles that discuss them. Such articles often openly state that auras are scientifically unproven, before going on to treat them as real regardless. For instance, Healthline simply says, "No scientific studies exist to prove the existence of auras." The site then begins discussing auras as if they are real, with minimal disclaimers. The Center for Excellence, meanwhile, states, although science hasn't confirmed the existence of auras yet, this doesn't mean that they don't exist. It then cites Schumann resonances as indicative of the truth of auras, defining these as measurable energy fields, such as the Earth's magnetic field. But that's not quite right. Schumann resonances are frequencies at which the ionosphere bounces electromagnetic waves back to Earth. They have absolutely nothing to do with auras. Yet up Other articles, like one on Stylecaster, don't even bother to mention science at all, simply asking, have you ever wondered what your spiritual vibe looks like? While fairly entertaining, such articles perpetuate a great deal of misinformation regarding the scientific validity of auras. Some researchers have taken steps to try and explain auras, not the Kirlian photography type, since that has long been dismissed by science. Rather, they've looked into why some individuals claim to be able to see auras themselves. A study in consciousness and cognition investigated the relationship between aura seeing and synesthesia, a condition in which sensory data is interpreted across multiple senses. For example, people might be able to hear colors or taste shapes. However, the study concludes that both phenomena are phenomenologically and behaviorally dissimilar. Meanwhile, Psychology Today discusses the possibility that synesthesia produces visible auras, where aura seers convert their impressions of someone into color. The article also says that LSD tends to conjure visions of auras as part of the hallucinatory experience that the drug triggers in people.
I am a golden god!
Additionally, the article states that those who go through out-of-body experiences often claim to have seen aura-like glowing colors around objects and people, but such sightings involve imagination and don't explain why auras only appear in close physical proximity to the viewer. Ultimately, the article concludes that visible auras might indicate a misplaced body schema in the person seeing them. That is, a visual projection of one's own inner body map. All this is to say what we already know. Auras have no scientific validity whatsoever. If a person enjoys getting aura photographs done or reading articles about their apparent spiritual color, then great, so long as such people know that the whole thing is pretty much just for fun.